You thought humiliation would weaken him. Instead, it exposed you. In a world where guilt is currency and shame is weaponized, most people walk on eggshells to preserve their image. Not the Sigma. He doesn't flinch under judgment. He doesn't bend under public scrutiny. You could drag his name through every hallway, whisper his flaws in every circle, but you'd still lose because you don't understand what he's made of. Sigma males are immune to social games. Why? Because they never needed the crowd to begin with. They've already been alone, already faced the dark, already stood in their own storm. So when you try to shame a Sigma, it doesn't stain his reputation, it sets yours on fire. You thought the spotlight would melt him, but you didn't realize he was forged in that heat. Let's break down 10 truths about what happens when you try to shame a Sigma and fail publicly. 1. He doesn't play defense, he plays dead silence. Your accusations were loud, his silence was louder. When most people are accused, they scramble to defend themselves, to clarify, to appease. The Sigma doesn't. He lets the chaos unfold. Not because he's weak, but because he knows silence has gravity. While you're shouting, pleading, or throwing shade in public, the Sigma simply stops responding. And that silence? It isn't passive, it's surgical. It forces people to look harder, not at him, but at you. Why is she trying so hard to smear him? Why is he obsessed with ruining his name? The Sigma knows that if you're speaking too loudly about someone who isn't fighting back, people start wondering about your motives. You wanted attention. He gave you a stage and watched you perform your own collapse. That's not passivity, that's power. 2, he owns his flaws before you can weaponize them. You can't shame someone who already confronted their darkness. The average person hides their past, conceals their guilt, and panics when exposed. But Sigma males walk with scars in plain sight. You call out his flaws? He's already made peace with them. That's why your insults fall flat. You tried to dig up his mistakes. He was already standing on them. He doesn't pretend to be flawless, he embraces the complexity. Because power isn't found in perfection, it's found in honesty. While you hope to expose him, all you did was remind everyone how real he is. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone who refuses to hide. 3, he doesn't fight for image. He lives in truth. You tried to wreck his image, but he was never performing. A Sigma male doesn't construct a facade for public approval, he walks through life without a mask. While others rehearse reputations, he operates in raw essence. You tried to shame him publicly, to crack his composure, but you misunderstood the man entirely. He has no image to protect, only integrity to preserve. You threw accusations hoping to collapse his confidence. Instead, you revealed your obsession with validation. The Sigma doesn't panic when his name is in someone's mouth. He's too busy building something you can't access. A life founded on truth, not perception. He doesn't battle for social favor because his value isn't up for debate. And in trying to stain him, you painted your own desperation in broad daylight. He didn't lose face. You lost your grip. 4, he doesn't respond. He resurrects. While you dragged his name, he rebuilt his legacy. You thought you had him cornered, publicly accused, slandered, disrespected. You rallied your audience and sharpened your knives, expecting him to break down in the spotlight. But the Sigma didn't flinch, he vanished. Not out of fear, but strategy. He knows when the battlefield is rigged, the wisest move isn't to fight, it's to disappear and rebuild. He went ghost not to escape, but to upgrade. You thought he folded. In reality, he was constructing a new version of himself behind the curtain. While your noise echoed through the halls of attention seekers, he was laying bricks with discipline, wiring his next chapter with precision. He didn't defend himself because defenders play on your terms. He had no interest in explanations. When he returned, he didn't come to justify. He came bearing receipts, results, elevation, legacy. While you stayed addicted to public drama, he transcended it, completely operating on a frequency your character will never reach. 5, he's uncancellable because he's unattached. You can't cancel someone who doesn't fear being alone. Cancel culture thrives on the idea that people need acceptance, that they'll beg, grovel, cry to stay in the tribe. But Sigma males don't beg. They vanish. They disconnect. They don't resist exile because they were never part of your village in the first place. You wanted him to lose sleep over losing you. Instead, he slept better than ever. When you try to cancel a Sigma, all you do is grant him more solitude, and solitude is where he thrives. You think you're punishing him. In reality, you're freeing him from noise he already outgrew. 6. He lets you expose yourself. Every accusation reveals more about the accuser. While you're building a case against him, posting, gossiping, playing the victim, the Sigma just watches. Not to let it slide, but to let you unravel. Because the more you talk, the more people see through you. Your obsession, your bitterness, your need to control the narrative. And when no resistance meets your accusations, the world starts asking, why are you so desperate to destroy someone who isn't fighting back? The Sigma knows human psychology. He lets your need to ruin him ruin you. 7. He's already survived worse. You tried to shame a man who already lived through silence, storms, and solitude. This wasn't the Sigma's first betrayal. He's walked through whispers behind his back, false narratives, and knives from people he once protected. He's been exiled from circles he never needed, doubted by minds too small to grasp his silence. So when you tried to shame him, you didn't strike a nerve. You triggered déjà vu. The Sigma doesn't fear shame because he's already stared it down in solitude. He's been called cold, arrogant, detached before anyone even understood the reasons. But instead of cracking under pressure, he crystallized. Every smear taught him how to build without permission, walk without validation, and rise without witnesses. You thought you were launching a surprise attack, but he already had the blueprint. You weren't the storm, just another echo of a past forecast. And now you're performing a drama he's already seen, while he silently outgrows the entire stage. 8. He doesn't retaliate. He evolves. You wanted a reaction. He gave you transformation. You hoped he'd lash out. You wanted the meltdown, the rant, the emotional unraveling, because that's how most people respond when publicly cornered. But the Sigma male doesn't entertain crowds. He doesn't perform for redemption. He transforms in silence. He doesn't fight to reclaim dignity. He becomes so evolved that dignity chases him. You mistook his silence for defeat. What you missed was the quiet recalibration happening behind the scenes. While you talked, he built. While you plotted, he planned. He wasn't ignoring you. He was building a life so refined that your name wouldn't even echo through it. By the time your drama ran dry, he was unrecognizable, not from reinvention, but revelation. He didn't just move on, he transcended. And when people looked at the scoreboard, it was brutal. Your noise turned into background static, and his growth became a monument you can't even approach. 9. He turns public humiliation into private growth. He doesn't escape the fire, he becomes it. Most people crumble when dragged publicly, but the Sigma, he uses every rumor, every accusation, every sneer as raw material. He doesn't avoid humiliation, he metabolizes it. You mocked him? He used that pain as fuel. You disrespected him? He turned it into discipline. Shame doesn't define the Sigma, it forges him. So when the dust settles and you're still fixated on the takedown, he's already 10 chapters ahead, unbothered, unshaken, and unreadable. 10. He leaves you with the silence you created. You won the argument, but lost access forever. After all the shaming, the slander, the drama, you expected a final word, maybe even a last fight. But the Sigma doesn't hand out closure. He gives you silence, the same silence you tried to drown him in. You tried to define him publicly. He defined your absence privately. You may have embarrassed him briefly, but he made it permanent by never letting you back in. No texts, no messages, no reunions, just a locked door and a lesson. You burned the bridge. He used the ashes as fuel. On a final note, he didn't play the game. He redesigned the board. You thought public shame would break him. Instead, it broadcasted your insecurity. While you staged your takedown, the Sigma upgraded silently, strategically, and permanently. Because the Sigma male doesn't fight battles rooted in ego. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't correct every lie. He lets truth do what it always does, outlast noise. By the time the world figures out what really happened, he's long gone. Stronger, quieter, untouchable. And all you're left with is your performance and the silence of someone who never needed to clap back to win.